Season 8, Episode 29, number 336 of the Decoded Podcast. Right when I hit live, I had to look up to the left and see if I could find our our information, because last week when I was trying to sign off, or the week before, whenever we were on last, I couldn't find it. I'm looking, I'm like, what's going on here?
Now, is that just eyeball, like your locators were off? You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
just weren't looking. It's like you lost your training for a second.
yeah. Yeah. And so when I clicked this morning, I click and I'm like, whoa, I should have found it first before I clicked. But hey, I'm a risk taker. I took the risk and here we are.
I like that. As I wish. No, I don't wish anything. Part of, there's the fatigue again. So this particular moment that you're identifying, looking for the episode ID. I like that confusion. It reminds me of the day after. I don't know how you did seating plan changes in the past. The way I do it with the kids is I will give them. I've made up a Google drawing of our classroom, like the footprint, and everything in red is like permanently on the drawing. You can't move it. But I have all their desks as green squares, and I say you can move around those green squares into the specific spots as to where you would like to do the next seating plan. And I do it every month. I change up the seating plan every month. Tactically, I find it's excellent. It's an excellent deregulation tool to help kids break behaviors. It also keeps them mindful of building behaviors. It keeps them kind of present, so they'll be able to sit there for a month. And I tell them it has to satisfy 2 criteria: that you're productive and that you feel good. And it has to be both, equal measures of both. And then we'll do conferencing if it doesn't work out. But anyways, the day after, so everyone kind of, and every kid, so I've got 13, 14 kids, they all submit their design on Google Classroom, and then I look to see where do they want to sit, because I tell them you can move out with their people too. Like you redesign everybody. So you're putting yourself in a new spot, and you might be putting Jimmy all the way on the other side of the room, or they can do that. And so I look at the whole thing. I kind of take it as a survey, and then I make the final decision. And then the day of, so it's always on the top of the month. They'll come in, whatever's the closest day to the top of the month, they'll come in, and I have projected on the screen the new seating plan, and then they move. I just call it moving day, and they pick up their stuff and they sort of move to a different desk. While we're doing that, we clean the desks and all that kind of stuff. The next day after that, I really enjoy, because the students will come in and they go walking. I see them hit their groove and they start walking towards their seat that was from the previous month's seating plan. And then they get to their spot, and they all do different variations of this, but of like this. And they realize that they're not in the right spot. The thing that they weren't even paying attention to, they're now paying attention to, and they get kind of brain itchy, and then they're like, and then they walk over to the other spot. And I don't do anything. It's like I watch it like this silent movie, but it happens. And it usually only happens once. You only get to kind of like in different ways. I like that. You're looking for the call sign. It's kind of like, it's not, in this case, it didn't move, but it still had that itchy brain kind of a moment. Like, where am I? What's going on? Where is it? Last thing I'll say with this, I've played with this as a brain game. I told you back in the day when I was at Tommy Douglas High School, I would park in different spots in the morning. I wouldn't just go to like my parking spot. I would intentionally, because at that school, there was spots all the way around the whole school. You could park at the back, you could park on one side, you could park at the front, you could park at the far right. At the beginning of the day, in the morning, all doors are open. So you can go in any door. And then the school protocol is, once the first bell hits, all the doors are locked other than the front door of the school. right? Safety, security, everyone gets funneled in through the main foyer. This gets tricky at the end of the day because, again, the only door that is actually unlocked is the front door. So I have actually walked out the side door. Door closes behind me, and imagine a school. The school can house 2,000 kids, big high school. I walk out the side door, and I start walking quite directly towards where I think my car is, and I remember, oh yeah, today's the day when I parked on the west side. So then I have to walk all the way around to the front to go in if I want to go in the front door, which sometimes is faster to cut through to get to the other door because the school isn't a perfect rectangle. But I had that moment and I loved it because it was like a little safe, simple reminder, like, watch your groove, watch the groove you get into. And it's not the groove betraying you. My car didn't move, but it seemed like it did. I'm like, oh, that's right. It's on the other side of the school. I like this. I like this coming into the end of the school year, thinking about these grooves, the automaticity, this thing isn't where I left it. Why isn't it there? Oh, that's right. Because I moved it, right? And then you have the ownership of it saying, right, this is me trying to sort of figure my shit out, grow, think better, be more aware, be more present, be more intentional, and have another sip of coffee.
Your comment about you liking that little bit of uh, uh,
Mental anarchy.
thank you, mental anarchy, to me is interesting this morning because not that I was disturbed by it, but it was like, oh, where's the podcast ID? It's literally like a millisecond thing that happens here, but I've noticed at work when I have that, what did you call it?
Mental anarchy.
Mental anarchy at work when I'm in the room and kids are coming in and you're trying to do a number of different things at the same time. And a kid says, "Hey, Mr. Chidiak, can I have my test now?" And I just look up and I say, I will get it to you. I've got some other, it's literally like, you will get your test, not in a rude, like when I give it to you kind of way, but there's 1,000 things going, I'm processing right now, and your test is not the priority. I don't say that. I just say, yeah, I'll get it to you soon. And it's hilarious because I found myself just yesterday, a handful of kids just sitting at their desks, cell phones put away, pencils out, calculators on the table. They're literally waiting. They're like, I'm ready. I'm like, I gotcha. I'm not ready. And that mental anarchy there did not phase me, which is pretty sweet because I think I'd rather have that moment of mental anarchy here with you for the podcast on a Saturday morning than a Friday period two when there's 27 kids in the room. They're all doing something different, and Jimmy's like, "Yo, I'm ready. Where's my test?" There's also, I just want to attach this because there's a different mental anarchy when I'm standing up at the front of the room getting things organized and somebody will come up to try to take their test from the table where we keep all the tests. And I just laugh. I'm like, "Go sit down. Like, I'll get it to you." Because they're thinking, "What's the big deal?" I'm thinking, well, in transit to me, I don't know what you did or what you may have done. And then in transit back to your table with your test, I don't know what you're going to do. So there are some things that are just not, they just don't work for me. And when you think, you might say, "What's the big deal?" Well, uh, 2 days ago, a student comes in. He's known to me. He sits down. I make sure I give him the spiel. I give him his test, and I look up and I see his hand under the table. He's got his cell phone under the table. It's on. He's looking at something. And then he puts the phone between his legs and I walk up to him and I'm like, "Yo, what are you doing?" And I did not say it in a very nice way. I was annoyed. And he's like,
Mhm.
"What? What?" I'm like, "Your cell phone. It's supposed to be in your backpack." He goes, "What? Where is it?" I'm like, "It's between your legs." And then he looks up at me and then he looks down between his legs and he just takes it out from between his legs, drops it in his bag and zips the bag. And then I look at my watch and I'm like, I only have 5 more minutes left in the room. And when that bell rings, I'm gone. And then I'm gone. Like, this is because this guy's known to do these things. Anyway, he came in yesterday to finish part two of his test. And as he's coming in, he's walking past the test table thinking he's just going to grab his test and go. And I'm like, no, you're not doing that. We're going to lock up your bag. We're going to lock up. Like, I'm looking at him like, yeah, I'm that guy today. I'm not, I'm not coming off as like yo, I'm your buddy. I'm like, no, you're getting locked down before I give you anything. And he just looks at me. And then I was like, okay, where's the phone? Takes the phone and I'm like, put it right here up at the front. I think I told you this story. Put it right up at the front. And then, okay, backpack over here. Do you need a pencil? Yes, no problem. I'll get you one. Do you need a calculator? Yes, no problem. I'll get you one. Then he says, can I have a whiteboard table? Of course. Like, it was just hilarious that he walked in and my spidey sense was like, you can go anywhere you want. I'm not giving you anything until I'm satisfied that you're ready according to my way of operating. And if you're not, then I just won't give you your test. Same thing. There's a few minutes before I have to leave. I'll just leave it for the next person and I'll just tell them he didn't meet my standards for test taking during my time in the room. Uh, this is what happened. It's up to you now. You can decide what you want to do. So, uh, the mental anarchy at work, I'm getting better at working through that and not letting other people's expectations stir me up because I'm already stirred up. I don't need other people's way of operating to do that to me. I'll deal with it. One kid said to me on my caseload, and she was joking, but she's like, you're a little slow. I'm like, thank you. And I just kept doing what I was doing, right? And she's like, did you not hear me? I'm like, yeah, I heard you. You said I was slow. The more you talk to me, the slower I'm going to go. So if you just be quiet and let me get on with stuff, you'll get your assignment and get started on your activity. It's hilarious because then I'm off on the side track. Like, why are you so slow? Well, that's just how I am at this particular time in my life. And then they're looking at me like they're waiting to get a rise. I'm like, that's not gonna upset me. Do you want to keep talking about that, or do you want me to serve you your assignment or test? What would you like to do? Anyway, mental anarchy on a Saturday morning. Gary's with us.
Morning, Gary.
Good morning.
Morning, Gary. Yeah, I like the well, a couple things. I know you shared this story this week about um uh proctoring tests in your space, and I won't go into the details because those were your details to share, but you sort of scrutinizing students' preparedness for what I think is like for your responsibility to encourage students to perform at as high performance level as possible and to kind of adhere to the rules of engagement, I think is entirely reasonable inside of a professionally managed space such as yours, where much like your engagement work, you had to kind of create the context within which the work was going to work. You had to sort of say, here are the success criteria for the actual goals of this program. And by you being in it, yes, it's going to be challenging because maybe you don't operate this way. And by you being in it, yes, you might get a little uncomfortable because you're not performing in your comfort zone. But ultimately, this is what you have to grow to. Like, this is what you have to be prepared to do. And I really appreciate your story about holding that student to account for that and how you communicated what you observed with their classroom teacher. And you didn't include, much details about the student and the uh, the impact on them, like how they were sort of feeling in that when you were counseling them and talking to them about their um their test performance. But I think this is the sometimes when we again would talk about this mental anarchy. I think when we choose not to, we can cause our own mental anarchy. I moved my own car. I moved my own car. When you forget that, when you realize that, you've moved your own car and you did it because you were aiming to grow and do something better for yourself. It's like bringing only vegetables for lunch. Like, why the hell did I only bring vegetables for lunch? Like, oh yeah, that's right. I have to stop eating all this fatty food at lunch. So you have this choice of like you're actually doing something in your own favor that can actually improve you. And then that other part of yourself is like, stop doing that. I hate it when you do that. I love this mental anarchy because sometimes that's the zone where you really have to take sides with yourself. And often in the past, I've made the mistakes of taking sides with the system or taking sides with someone that actually doesn't know the context that I had designed in order to help somebody out. So, I am quite strict with the students. I could say disciplined, I could say skilled, I could say wise, but strict. I hold a strict adherence to my expectations for performance in my classroom. And those expectations are based on me knowing the kids, not just me sort of picking something out of the air like this broad standard. I'm like, this is the baseline you have to aspire to. It's like, I know you, I've worked with you. I get what you think is good. I said, but I'm going to implement myself as a coach and a mentor here. I'm going to say, you can do better. And I know you can. It's going to be difficult. You're not going to like the process because sometimes that's uncomfortable. Change can be scary. It can also be disassembling as like, where am I? What am I doing? I said, but I'm there with you and know full well I'm gonna hold you to an account that you are capable of getting to if you hold to the process. We forget that for ourselves. And in these moments of mental anarchy, of course, sometimes it can just be, you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Like you're not in a great mind space, so you have some anarchy. That one I can kind of like, okay, fine, I'll recover. Like I can almost walk away from that. It's the ones where I've set up a great context that confuses me because I'm not really paying attention as closely as I should. And then I say to myself, okay, I'm going to compromise. I'm not going to push so hard. I'm not going to push myself. And every single time I disappoint myself afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that? I should have stayed the course. I should have stayed the course. Now, eventually I get there. I do. I get back to it because I'm mindful enough to pay attention to it. But I love like working through these kind of like moments of confusion because I feel like every time I do, I learn something new about like it's like a new discovery about myself. And at like almost 55 years of age, that's a gift, man. And I come to the end of the school year, that's even better because what that means is I can sit with it for the summer. How do I come back? And I've told you about my the way I envision my classroom each year. I scrape it all down, I put everything away, and I sit there and I just think about it. I often will sit there in the same mental anarchy, like, why the hell did I think that was a good idea to do that activity in that space? And now I can do it. I have the space to actually self-soothe almost. Like, don't worry, you can do this better next time. You know how to do it. The mental anarchy is useful.
I may not go into details here, but I want to say a few things, especially around being an older person and learning. So you're saying you're 55 years old and learning continues and it's happening even now as you approach the end of the school year. It reminds me of the learning I've been going through and experiencing and have been engaged in this year. And it's really been cool on a couple of levels. The one level is just I've talked about it here, the exhaustion I've felt this year from every day when I think I understand a process, I don't. To the
Mm,
point where I was in a meeting recently about a situation. A student is going through a rough time, which really sucks. And they called me in because there was a psych ed done for the student. And so the idea was, okay, well, we're most likely going to create an IEP. I would most likely be their monitor, so invite roll into the meeting. And as we're sitting in the meeting, I'm looking through the psych ed and I realize there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it that requires the student to have an IEP for their learning. There are diagnoses that suggest that things are getting in the way of the student's learning, but the student can learn on their own without accommodation. That is not the issue that comes from this report. And so I'm like, okay, I know that. I'm like, I can't write an IP based on with like no other factors given to me. The report says that this student's cognitive processes and all the things that they do to learn, none of it is impaired. None of it requires accommodations. Yes, of course, the other things a student has been diagnosed with, any compassionate human being would then provide that student with best practices to help them achieve. But the but if if everything's equal, there's no learning issue. So I present this at the table at the meeting and say, I just letting you know, I don't think this is the root of an IEP. I think this is definitely student success support in order to communicate with teachers and provide the student with like a structure to operate based on what this report says. But unless unless I'm given different direction, special direction from someone above me, this is not a case to create an IEP. But even saying it, I was like, I'm sure there's a loophole somewhere that someone's going to hit me over the head with and say, what about section 572? You can, I'm like, no, I get that. Everything I've learned to this point, I'm not making this up. It's based on, oh my God, at least half a dozen situations where someone says, okay, here the student has a diagnosis of this, parents want an IEP. And I'm like, okay, well, we can't make an IEP based on that diagnosis. We have to have other pieces. Need other data to support the creation of an IEP. And so then you got to go and collect that data or literally sit down with the kid and do an assessment in order to say that that piece was done along with this diagnosis. Then you can do it, right? I know enough. I know enough that I know that there may be a loophole somewhere, because in my job there appears to be loopholes, more loopholes than the black and white rules of the job. Knowing that, I operate with a little bit more compassion than I normally would, because there's a good chance I'm wrong about what I'm saying, and I do not want to be the person that refuses to acknowledge that they're wrong, because I know for me, in some cases, that's the kiss of death, and I don't want to go there. I want to remain as flexible as I can be and as I can be to the learning, understanding that I'm making mistakes all the time. So I've made. Oh, you want to jump in? Jump in.
I just have to put the just a little bit of the yeah but stamp on this. That just, if you're prepared, I get that, man. That humility, I don't see that pop up in enough student success meetings. It's what led me to sort of just bluntly say to people, but curriculum is not what we need to talk about here. And I apologize if that's what you thought this meeting was going to be about. It is not. Curriculum is not going to help this kid right now. I like that. And to also recognize that you may be wrong. It's the discernment that is the tool. That is the tool, the discernment, because I will say you also have to be the one that says, I am right. I am right, even when everyone agrees with you. And we talked about this factor, I think, on last week's pod, that idea that community ignorance that can happen, that in groups, it's like connected with groupthink, right? That in groups, sitting there and saying to yourself, this doesn't seem right. And you survey and you're like, but no one's saying anything. So I'm going to pack that away and assume that it must be right because no one else is stepping up and saying that it's wrong. So to be the one that bursts that bubble and to say, no, I am right, is also really critical. Now, the shitty part, here's the anarchy, is you don't always know what person to be. And I will say you can't be both. You can't. You really can't. I have never found any stability in my own brain when I was like, okay, I'm going to go full compassion and just kind of go with the group's thing. And at the back, it's saying, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. Or I'm just going to say, no, I am right. And then on the other side, but people aren't going to like you. You really do have to commit to one side or the other, because you're going to walk away. You're going to walk away glorious because you've made a decision. Yay. But you're going to come away a little fractured too. So just that confidence to hold that line. I think if you're connected with your humility that I still have more to learn, I would say still have more to learn as opposed to the catastrophic type of thing is as someone's going to wreck this for me. I will keep it in that house of I still have more to learn, but based on my understanding so far of this case, this kid, the actual policies and protocols of the board, and my own capacity to deliver on whatever's next, here's what my decision is. And I'm going to run with it. I think you really do. You have to be able to say that, no, I'm right. And all 5 of you are wrong. All 10 of you are wrong. All 20 of you are wrong. All 100 of you are wrong. These scenarios do exist. And I would argue that because we really don't have enough people that do step into that wrestling match, that education is worse for it. I really do. So and I'm not going to get there in the time that I'm there, but I will say here on the pod, I'm more than happy to keep playing with that and learn that about myself at 55. And definitely when I see somebody else, because you can look around the room, the people that are doing this and they're agreeing with the wrong opinion, and then you can see the other people that are doing this. Those are the people I want to talk to. I want to just get up, kind of walk over with my coffee. I'm like, what do you think about this? And just kind of sit down for a second. You're like, what do you think about this? I'm kind of having some other thoughts about this. And then kind of, you want to step outside for a sec?
See, the really cool thing about this meeting we had is that I was familiar and I didn't know this until the parents walked in the room
Mm,
that I connected to that family. When I was in re-engagement, I used to run into this. So the mother of this student also works part-time at one of the schools I worked at in re-engagement. And then I found out that I had worked with her mother-in-law when I first started my career. So there were lots of connections to that family. And so when she walked in and she saw me, she was like, "Oh my God, I wondered where you ended up." I'm like, "Here I am, special education at the high school." And in the middle of this meeting, she looked at me, she goes, "Are you able to come to my house and try to get him to come to school?" And then the social worker laughed and said, "No, Roland doesn't do that anymore. That's not part of his job here." But she was even like, "I know that you used to do that and you'd bring the kid into the school." And we were like, "Oh my God, he brought the kid to school. Can you help us here with that?" I was like, "I'm doing this." And the social worker's like, "No, no, no, that's not part of his job." But it was really cool, actually. It was like, I looked up at the universe and I was like, "Thanks for this excellent opportunity of a feeling of safety that I could speak and I could say, this doesn't look like a situation to create an IEP, but let me tell you then from my knowledge and understanding how we could shift so that your son is still supported, just not in that way." Um, and then I've made some really cool mistakes recently. I can think of three kind of, to me, that were big ones. That it was one of those moments like, yeah, I can't, even if I wanted to hide from this mistake, I can't. Um, so then it's like, okay, Roland, well, how do you figure it out? How do you make things right? And how do you also, I guess, apologize if required, or at least demonstrate that you're aware that you made an error, but that you're going to do things to correct them. So a good one, a big one that I've told you about, and I think Gary knows about it too. Gary does know. A student had some issues with the way I was running my e-learn course, and and um, essentially went over my head, went straight to admin to tell them about the issues. And I gotta give credit to the administrators who said, "No, you don't come to us first. You talk to your teacher first, and then if things aren't, we have a process here, a policy. You talk to the teacher, and then if it needs to come to us, then it comes to us. But you don't just come straight to us. Your teacher doesn't even know what's going on. That's not cool." So then I reached out to the student to inquire, what's up, and then the student gave me some information, and based on that information, I realized that there were some things that were within my control to correct. So what I did was I made sure that I knew what I was talking about and that I could respond to this student in a professional manner, and also in a way to correct things that could have been done better that weren't being done. Um, anyway, so I figured things out and I responded to the student, but I also included my administrator in the response because I feel safe enough to demonstrate to my administrator that I'm not perfect, but surely I can correct the situation, and moving forward, I can I can have a better practice. I think that's important, especially for me personally. Since they were looped in, I'll loop them back. But I trust them, and I believe that they do care about my growth. Whether that's right or wrong, that's my belief. So I operated in that way. The other mistakes were pretty cool because it's like from them I've now learned a few things that I think I've incorporated into my operating system. And but I stood behind both of those decisions. Is really cool. I realized that something, I won't call one of them a mistake. I made a decision and then I not questioned about it, but people were curious, like what happened here? And then I explained myself, but I stood behind my decision. So maybe they wouldn't have done things the same way, and that's okay. But I based my decision on like care for a student, um, and also to set boundaries with a student and a teacher to say, hey, this is what happened today. This one's on me. So if you want to be pissed or if you want to yell at somebody, whatever, you can you can hit me with the dart. The next time I'm in this situation, this is exactly how I'm going to operate. Everybody knows now what I'm going to do, which I don't always know what I'm going to do. And with I don't know, I just have to react to the situation in front of me. But if I see this again, this is what's going to happen. And I tell you, since I made that decision, I've encountered several of those situations where I've said to people, kids that I know now, I said, listen, you're in here to write a test. I'm giving you max 10 minutes to look over your notes, and then I'm taking your notes away and you're writing the test. So you can cry about it, you can do this about it, whatever. This is what's happening today. This is what I can control with you today. I can't control you being in here, blah blah blah. This is what I can control. And what was really cool, I'll end on this one. What was really cool was these two kids who come in sometimes to write a science test. They're best buds and they're kind of loud and they can be obnoxious. The first time they came in, it was a gong show, like discipline gong show. And I realized that I knew one of the kids. I knew his mom. I worked with her when I first started my career. So when I dropped that on him, I'm like, you're so and so. He's like, yeah. I'm like, bro, I've seen you grow up on Facebook. And then he looked at me all funny. I'm like, I'm buddies with your mom and your dad. I've known your mom since before they even thought about having you, kind of thing. um he's like, oh really? I'm like, yeah, yeah, tell your mom, you can text her now, tell her I say hi, and then you're gonna da 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 da. Now when they come in, they walk in, they're like, "Hey, Mr. C, we're here to write a test." I'm like, "Perfect. You're sitting over there, you're sitting over here." Then they try that. Well, can we? No, you can't. That's where you're sitting, or you're going back to class. They're like, "Okay, we have to try." Yesterday when they came in, I'm like, 10 minutes, that's it, starting in 1 minute because I need you to sit down and put your stuff away. Well, can we sit together to study? Yes. They looked at each other like they were like, "Oh my God, is this guy for real?" I'm like, you can do that until it becomes a problem. And if it becomes a problem, I'm never going to let you do that again. So you show me how I'm going to operate. They sit down, they start studying. I'm like, you got 2 minutes left, start packing up. They wrote the test, not a word, not a problem. But this took time and energy to build relationship and to know my parameters and to be confident in them. You can tell me all your complaints. You can write the test, or you can leave. Those are your two choices. What do you want to do? And then if you don't make a decision, I'll decide. You're leaving. You're not staying causing me problems. So from all this learning, from all this exhaustion, there's a build up of confidence and capacity and understanding of who I am as a teacher in that room, what the rules are based on the team approach, and then I got to live my life. I got to be rolling just like everybody else is who they are.
Mental anarchy.
Any final words before we go? Because I knew you have to go.
Apologies. Yeah, Tai Chi is beckoning, and we're in our final stretch. So we're doing full routine now. Nothing like moving slow for 20 minutes. Like that's literally how long it takes us to get through the routine, which is fascinating to me. Fascinating.
That's cool.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time today, Gary. It was great seeing you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Anybody
Morning.
else? Thanks.
Yeah.
And have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Yep. Get out there and celebrate.
This was season 8, episode 29, number 336 of the Decoded Podcast. Take care.
Peace.